Yeah, so I did not come prepared tonight because I think I've probably been preparing my whole life. So I should, and there's just something about if you should prepare for things. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm just saying, if people that are ready, you should be ready. You know what I'm saying? So 1776, man, the acoustics are good in here. That symbolizes something. What's that symbolize, 1776? Freedom? And that means doing what you want to do, right? So that's what the Constitution and the Bill of Rights gives us, right? And I'm leading into why I'm running. So I've always been interested in politics. And I don't know why. It's a disease. It's like cows. I love cows. It's a disease too, especially if you try to be in the dairy business. Anybody that's been in it, you know what I'm talking about. Love the cows, hate the business. Love the people. It's the people and the cows. So I'm going to say things tonight that I've never said in public. It's really personal to me. If I get choked up, I usually don't bring it up. I never have. My friends know about a few things, but I think it's important for me to bare my soul tonight because you need to know if I'm going to ask for your vote, you need to know who I am. So by the way, I also too this last election, the Central Committee picked an unknown mid-20-something to run for state senate. Nobody knew him, but yet the leadership comes out and anoints him, and I was kind of like, wait a minute. Nobody knows him. He's got no experience. Oh, but he's good looking, and he dresses good, and he knows how to talk. Okay, well, I observed, and I seen everybody fall in line, and I'm like, it just seems wrong. But okay, maybe it's just me. Maybe, I'm not seeing things right. So, but I decided to get involved because I'm somebody that gets involved. So I applied to the Tulare County Republican Central Committee. And by the way, you do want to get more signatures and make sure that you guys, a lot of people don't sign the same one if there's multiple people because they will count them. But so like in my case, there was 4 seats. If there's 4 candidates, they'll use all, and some people sign all 4 of they'll use all 4. However, if there's extra, they'll use the first 4. So make sure you got extra signatures just in case that doesn't happen. So I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. And then I'll get into, how much time do I got?
8:30, you got an hour.
Okay. Portuguese, again, I'll try. I want to save time for some questions, so I'll have to talk now. So, Mark Avila, we're cousins, and his great-grandfather Tom is the brothers with my great-grandfather John. And our great-great-grandmother is buried here in Calvary Cemetery in Hanford. So I got roots in Hanford, in Lemoore. My grandmother, my dad's mother, milked cows by hand over by Hickey Park. My dad, and then they grew up on Dover, where the railroad tracks, where Doc Destin is. Right there, my Uncle David still owns that. My mom, my grandfather on my mom's side, Betancourt, he came over from the Azores when he was 12 and got in the dairy business. My mom was born. They met my dad my parents met at Portuguese Festa and Pismo, got married. They moved to Hanford. And what my mom tells me, I'm a Republican because of my mom. All the Avilas were Democrats. I think they're all Republicans now. But my mom tells me when she moved to Hanford, 15th and a half, that all the Portuguese were like, we got a Republican. That was the talk of the town, that they had a Republican. So I'm Republican from my mom. So I was born at Sacred Heart Hospital, but my parents, moved to Tipton. My dad got in a partnership with my grandfather. My grandfather was well known in Tulare. He won Farmer of the Year, Tulare County, 1958. So I felt my dad brought a calf home to raise, and I fell in love with the calf. I always wanted to be in the dairy business. I got in the dairy business in 1992. I was always drawn to politics, and when I was a senior in high school is when Ronald, I think the best president ever. Maybe Trump is Ty, I don't know, but that was my introduction to politics, was watching the news and watching Reagan and listening to his speeches, right? And so I was always interested in, I think my senior year, we had a civics class. We were going through the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and we did a mock Congress. And everybody elected me the Speaker of the House. That was a big mistake. We're supposed to bring all these bills, right? And so somebody brought a bill to ban abortion. But it had exceptions, rape, incest, all that. Well, I went to Catholic school in Tulare for 8 years, St. Aloysius, and I was taught that we are created in the image and likeness of God, and that's a human being. So I asked the teacher, I think the class selected me because I was a little astute on politics. Well, you can make amendments. So I tried to make an amendment, it failed, and I got everybody mad at me. And so then we voted on the bill with exceptions. That failed miserable. I remember sitting at the front of the class and everybody was mad, and I went, wow, politics is, I sat there in that filled esteem of being the only one, you know, but honestly, it felt right. So I'm good with being the only one if it's the right thing to do. I had a good training at Catholic school. The nuns taught me a lot of value, you know, and it comes to play in the rest of my life. With that, I'm going to, you know, there's a saying, you can go to, please friend request me on Facebook. There's a post I came across that people often, you know, pray to God to change a situation they're in, but God often puts us in situations to change us. That's the story of my life. When I was about 30, I started to get my faith more, and I made a vow to God. I said, I'll do whatever you want me to do, but just make it clear what that is. I, you know, always wonder, how do you discern between your ego? Your ego can tell you things, right? Or how do you know? So, got in the dairy business in '92, got married a few years after that. Me and Susie started having kids. We moved to Kingsburg for a while. Then we moved over to 43 in the old Maciel dairy next to the Kings River. I was there for a number of years. When I got there, I met kind of a mentor of mine. I don't know if you guys know Joaquin Content. Okay, Joaquin got me involved in politics, dairy politics. From there, we started going. There was an organization, California Dairy Campaign. A couple of years into that, they made me chairman. I was chairman for 3 years. But what we did there was study a lot of policy, because that's what politics is, a lot of how policy works. We spent a lot of time going to Sacramento and CDFA hearings, you know, working on the price of milk, different things like that. We went to Washington, D.C. a lot. I was in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill when the plane hit the Pentagon. We were there to go do congressional visits, and we were looking out towards the west, and I looked away and then looked back, and there was a river of smoke. We were stuck there. I was there with Joaquin and his son JT. Anybody know JT? We were stuck there. You can verify that story with him if you want. Yeah, we get home, and anyway, in 2005, things were getting tough in the dairy business, and we always heard Tillamook, Oregon pays better. Been there a few times. We're looking at moving there. There's a chance to buy some affordable land, and what had to happen, because I needed to sell my cows and I needed to buy a place, and all these things. There's like 40 things that needed to fall in place, and wasn't sure if I wanted to move, but I said, you know what? I felt this calling that God wanted me to go there. So kind of hard to resist. It was nagging at me, right? So I said, you know what, God? 40 things ain't going to happen. If you want me to go there, make 40 things happen. Well, they haven't. And then I was kind of feeling the pressure. Oh, man, this is a big change. I don't know if I want to do it. Well, when we were counting the cows, there was 13 cows that we didn't count that were in the barn. And then we found them, and then when it came time for the guy to buy, he left the 13 out, and I almost broke that deal because of those 13 cows. But I remember sitting there thinking, I told God to do all this, make it happen, and I would go. He made it happen. If I blow this deal because of those 13 cows, I'm not following what he wants me to do. So, forget the 13 cows, we move. So, when I get up there, I've gotten a lot of, I'm used to what I call the dairy trade group wars. There was a Western United Dairyman and CDC, and we argued over policy, and it was a big deal. And when I went to Tillamook, I said, I'm going to go here, things are going to be quiet, I'm not going to get involved, mind my own business. Yeah, right. So when I get up there, it's the same thing. There's all this turmoil, and I'm looking around, nobody's doing anything. There's these people on the board, they're happy, everything's fine with them, but then the membership's not happy. Kind of reminds you of politics today, right? And for me, leadership is not commanding and controlling people. Leadership is serving people. Because we're all individuals, and, in order to have a good society, you need people to be free, and God gave us free will, and we need a society where you can practice that free will. So I started getting involved, and they wanted me to run for the board, but I'm there 1 year, and Oregonians don't like Californians, but I agreed to do it, and because I saw, I get involved when I see a need. If things are good, I don't really want, people are doing good, so I support them, right? So, but when I started seeing what was wrong, that's when I started getting involved. So I started campaigning and going to all these dairies. I was doing pretty good. And every other one was like, what are we going to do about the inspector? What do you mean? Well, they would say, there's 2 lists in town. There's the black list and the white list. If you're on the black list, you get treated different. If you're on the white list, they look over you. And I started to dig into it. It was pretty evident that was the case. There was a guy that was on the board, and then he lost his election, and he always kind of had a place that needed some help, so it's something an inspector would always be on him. I went and visited him one day. He goes, Xavier, look at my place. And I looked, he goes, yeah, I need to fix some things around here, clean some things up, but this is just how it looked when I was on the board. And no one messed with me. And now I'm off the board, now the guy's here all the time on me. So kind of what was happening was this inspector was weeding people out. He was looking to get people out of business. And just so happens the board members would end up with their places. And you could see that. And I developed some friendships. So it was funny too, because the inspector started coming to my place a lot, but then when I ran for the board, he backed away. So I told all these people, if this guy's doing that, then he needs to get fired. So I didn't get elected. The guy that was already an alternate, because it was an open seat, but he had served out an alternate, he won. We shook hands. And then the guy started coming after me, so I got to experience it firsthand. So, all right. Every problem has a solution. You just need to figure it out. You can't lose hope. And God will guide you to a solution if you're humble and you listen. And anyway, long story short, we formed a group. And there was about 140 herds. There was about 50 that felt they were on the blacklist. And it was getting to where we got about 21 people to start coming to meetings, just like you guys are here, band together. And that actually started working. And it was sad because the other people we wanted to get they were afraid because if they were being watched, and if you complained, then they blacklisted you, or they would show up at your place and they used the inspection to hurt you. Like, they could make you spend tens of thousands of dollars, and if you don't, then they'll take we're not picking your milk out. So everybody was frightened to death. And so we started organizing. They hired a new CEO, and I invited the CEO, this group, and the CEO, and these 20 people, we all told them what was going on. One board member showed up. There was one board member that was sincere, and he didn't think things were right, and so he was there to support us. Things started going pretty good. Pretty soon I was invited to a board meeting to give the list of grievances, and the board actually responded to that. Here's one. We have the creamery inspector, and we have the state inspector. The state inspector is the official. He's the one that counts. The creamery inspector is just kind of a, they make up their own rules. Well, the state inspector would come out and give you a 95% out of 100, and the creamery inspector would give you a 65 the next day. So I told that to them, and they actually cut out all the board agreed, and what the board saw was, we didn't know this at the time, but all the people that were too afraid to come were calling and saying, they were calling board members and saying, I don't want to come because I know I'll get targeted, but you got to do something. Because one board member said, oh, we've had a bunch of other people call besides you 20. Great. And then there was a big storm in December of 2007. And we were actually going to meet with some board members and talk about some of the other grievances. But one dairyman called me and he says, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe we're getting things done. He says, yeah, but this storm coming in is really bad. It might delay it a few weeks. It was one of those horrible storms, 128 mile an hour winds, rain, dairies were flooding, big tall trees were falling over, power. My dairy was out of power for 2 days. I had to load the cows up on trailers and run them down to the neighbors and get them milked. It was terrible. And one of the people in our group, her name was Liz. She had been picked on. She had been sexually harassed by this inspector. And this inspector had, there was a lot of women inside the creamery that would leave, and then we hear there was a settlement that the creamery would pay him off. So he tried something with her, and she pushed him away, and ever since he was trying to get her out. I think also too a board member wanted her place. So I felt responsible for her because she came to the meeting with the 20 of us. A little before that, I told you when the election was over, they started coming after me. Well, there was an inspector, his name was Gary, and he worked under this bad inspector. He shows up with a clipboard, and I'm like, hey Gary, what are you doing? He's like, I'm here to inspect you. And he looked mad. He looked angry. And I was just done last week. He goes, I got told, he made sure I got told to do it. I said, Gary, let me tell you something. Someday, this is all going to get exposed. He says, Xavier, can we talk off the record? Sure. Went around the corner. He told me everything. This is what they're doing. They get these guys out of business. Board members up with their line. He knew everything. I go, is he after Liz? He's after Liz. So when this storm happened, the lower fields, they were flooded with water this deep, and Liz's cows were dying. Anyway, the morning of the flood, there was a group of us. We got generators, we got feed, sawdust. We were going to go down there and help her take care of her cows. Gary calls me. He says, Xavier, Brian's heading down to put Liz out of business. So I jumped in my truck, raced down there, blocked the driveway, wouldn't let him get in. Apparently that was a violation of my membership. So they called me into a meeting, and they asked my side of the story. I told them, and I told them, I don't even know why you're bringing me in here, because you guys know what he's done. You guys know something weird about that. It was like they were protecting him, like they were all guilty, right? So anyway, they gave me 60-day notice. In 60 days, they were going to stop taking my milk. That's what the contract I tried to get into another creamery over in the valley, but they ruined that. They spread rumors that I had to clean its milk too. There's actually a news story out of Portland that did a big story. It really embarrassed them. So at some point before the 60 days was over, the guy that beat me in that election called me and said, Xavier, some of the board members are feeling bad. You may not do this, but if you're willing to apologize, they'll probably let you back in. I'm pretty sure they will. You got enough votes. And I said, thank you, Joe, but I can't do that. Because that guy should be in jail. He's hurting people, and I just can't. And he said, I figured you'd say that. But the other thing to that, too, is that would mean I would have to sit there and watch all this stuff happen, and I had to keep my mouth shut. It was like selling my soul. And I knew I ruined my life, my being in the business. So, trusting in God, I just went. I had to see, people would come up to me, why'd you do it? Why, because she's a human being. Well, before I did that too, I'm getting out of sequence here, but 6 months before that storm, and I went down there and stopped them, there was a guy down in Lincoln City that I heard they got him to sell his cows. So me and another guy went and visited him, and he said, I just got tired. We'd have a windstorm, I'd have 10 and everywhere, everybody has it. He'd be here the next day. Give me a week, let me clean it up. He was here the next day. He's not at anybody else's. He goes, I just got tired of it. So I vowed that if I could ever be there at that moment when he showed up, that I would. So, that's what I did with Liz. I was there. So we moved back. I got a job, in Tulare, managing a dairy. I know how to run dairy. I managed a dairy. And pretty soon my brother-in-law hired me. And my brother-in-law was a well-known dairyman in 2000. Who was in the dairy business in 2009? It was the worst year. Dairymen still talk about it. My brother-in-law ended his life. They had 7 kids. My sister was having a bad time. Oldest child emancipated herself, and me and Susie went and got the other 6 kids, and we took care of them. With our 7 and their 6, we have 13 kids for 6 months. Yeah. So another thing is, I was a delegate for Land O'Lakes for 10 years, starting when I was in Hanford. And then when I moved to Tillamook, we actually had a guy to take my spot, but he backed out at the last minute. And I'm like, I'm in Oregon, but they elected me anyway. The next 3 elections, I lived in Oregon. I had a partnership dairy in Carruthers, and so I was eligible, so I ran. And when I came back in 2011, I ran for the Land O'Lakes board, and that's a big elect. There's like 300 dairies. There's all these votes, and I won that. I served 9 years on the Land O'Lakes board. Land O'Lakes is a Fortune 200 company. All our meetings were in Minneapolis, and there too I got on the policy and resolutions, what I like, policy, and we worked with a lot of legislatures on farm bill stuff. So I know policy, right? At least from the dairy standpoint in agriculture. In 2007, we started hearing about the Tulare Hospital having trouble. It was going through bankruptcy. There was a lot of corruption. My wife told me I should get involved. Well, you don't have to tell me twice. So there was a citizens group, and what we did was the board, how you talk about the central committee and it's this, and they don't tell nobody. That board was the same thing. They brought in, a few years before that, they had the chance to bring in Fresno Community to manage the hospital or Adventist Health. They both rejected them for some quack doctor that had a startup management company. It was all corrupt. So the citizen group, there was 2 board members up for re-election. Well, there was a bond to do $55 million. We defeated that. And then we got 2 of our people on the board. And then we did a recall on the doctor. And so we got him out, and we got a majority. Then after that, the last 2 got out, and I was appointed. And that one too was, I talk about the situations that God puts you in that changes you. So all along, this is what I'm going through. It's changing me, right? In a good way. When I first joined that group, the district I was in, everybody always picked me. Who's in that group? Who's willing to run? I will. Okay, in a year you're going to run. Well, when that lady resigned, they said, okay, now you're going to get appointed. There won't even be an election. So everybody was patting me on the back and all that. And one day I walk into a meeting, it's a group like this, and no one's talking to me. I'm like, what's wrong? Well, an old board member from the past was wanting to run. And I'm sorry, I apologize. Going back, before I got involved, in the citizens group, before I went to the first meeting, I was setting up I bought some baby chicks for my daughters because I think kids raising animals is good for them. And a friend called me, hey, the meeting started, I'm going to be late. I was running for the door. I grabbed my keys, I opened the door up, and something stopped me. It wasn't a voice, it was just like a message. It was like, wait. And I was literally like, it was surreal. I was like, wait. And I'm like, and it was like, remember this. So that was weird. I'm running out. What was that? So then all the hospital stuff. So now I'm back to where nobody's talking to me. And I was filling out. You didn't have to fill it. You just had to send an email to the board to say you were interested. And so this is 2 weeks before the deadline. And I just felt this just drive or passion pushing me to do this. It was like God wanted me to do this. Nothing was going to stop me. And so then when that happened, everybody, oh, well, Victor's going to run. He was on the board before and all this stuff, and he's on another board, and, you're just a dairyman. And so I was like deflated. Jesus said to enter the kingdom of God, you got to be like a little kid. And having the little kids, I know what that means, because when your kids are little, if you ask them to do something, they run to go do it, right? Then they get teenagers and they roll their eyes, I thought, I'm going to type this email, but I'm not going to send it in. I'm going to wait 2 weeks and see if I get some sort of sign. I'm not the sign person, I was hoping for something, 2 weeks go by, nothing. It's the day to send it in, and I'm sitting there, and I'm going, well, I'm not going to send it. I guess it wasn't meant to be. It felt so real, but I guess it wasn't meant to be. I never got a sign. And as soon as I said that, I went right back to that doorway, standing in the doorway, holding my keys, and those words, remember this. I already had my sign. I had it 8 months before. So I pressed send, and then I went to an interview. There was 4 of us, and it was a room full of people, and I just poured my heart out, and there was one of Victor's friends. He stood up. I came here tonight to support my friend Victor, but after hearing Mr. Avila, you needed to pick him. So that, I think that's how God guides our life, right? So the hospital, we spent many nights, many dead ends. The hospital was never going to open again. And when you have people showing up, not everybody reads the news. Families showing up with babies in their arms, burning up with fever. Where's the hospital? Oh, it's closed. There's people that died that didn't make it to Kauai Delta. Seriously. So Adventists came in, got it open, things are going good. Again, here's this policy thing with me. We had a lot of bonds, and the rates were low. We refinanced the bonds. We saved Tulare, our hospital district taxpayers, $34 million over the life of the bonds. Right. So now we got to finish the tower. That's on the docket. Another reason why I want to run is because the state of California, a number of years ago, mandated that all hospitals, after the earthquake in Ridgecrest, be earthquake-proof. So we got a half-built tower there, and the deadline is supposed to be 2030. If you don't have an earthquake-proof hospital, you got to shut your hospital down. This is how brilliant Sacramento is. There's like 300 hospitals that haven't even started. We're halfway. And so what's going to happen? You know, this is one of these unfunded mandates, right? We mandate you do this. Oh yeah, you got to pay for it. And healthcare is in crisis. Hospitals are losing money everywhere. So I got involved. People saw me on the hospital board. The cemetery was a mess. It looked like the Sahara Desert. I got involved. We fixed thousands of sprinklers. We got the cemetery going good. And then for some reason, it turned into, there was some kid was a part of the Democrat Party, and he was radical. He would show up at the meetings, yell at us, tell us to resign. He got other people. We had demonstrations. That was weird. It was the weirdest thing, but maybe that's part of that thing to change you, because I had to learn how not to let it bother me. I had to learn, started studying psychology, that he's just projecting something. It's not even about me, so I would just be kind to him, just be nice to him, right? Anyway, so that, do you guys remember Carlton Jones, Mayor Tulare? Martin, oh, by the way, Martin has helped me out with my campaign, so I just wanted to recognize him. Martin, you remember Carlton Jones, the Mayor of Tulare? Do you remember? So I organized, we had the biggest city councils ever. I organized, we packed the place, we got him to take him off as mayor, and then when his election came, I recruited one of my board members on the hospital board to run against him, Stephen Harrell. He won his election, but I went into that district and I campaigned for 2 months. I cured votes. If you could get a list, since I was a campaign manager, if your signature doesn't match or you forgot to sign it, they won't count it. So I got a list. My wife helped me find the people. There was 34 votes, 9 Republicans. I only went to the Republicans because Carlton was Democrat, even though it was a nonpartisan. We won the election by 7 votes. So what I'm telling you here is I'm active. I'm not just sitting, I'd like to run, I know somebody, I have influence. I'm involved. So I know Devon Mathis, we worked with Devon Mathis quite a bit. When Adventus came in, we said, we're going to open the hospital in 100 days. And I thought, yeah, right. Whenever you remodel something, it never goes to plan. This is how you know God's operating in something, is to reopen that hospital was almost an impossible feat, but we did it. And the whole time, I never lost faith, because I was like, God's involved in this somehow. And we're not going to fail. Sure enough, it was like a miracle. But the day before we were supposed to open, we had all like 500 people supposed to show up. The state of California decides that there was a mistake on our paperwork for the pharmacy. We can't open. So we called Devon Mathis. I called Devon Nunes, and sure enough, later that afternoon, CDKH calls, oh, don't worry, you can open tomorrow. Why would you if you were a regulator, over a little mistake on an application, why would you deny a community their hospital? So you're seeing why I want to run, right? This is why I run, is because all the stupid things. There's a housing shortage. You ever hear of CEQA? CEQA's so burdensome, it raises the price, it slows down. That thing's got to be reformed, right? So, I've worked, I have a lot of family, the water, I know all the water stuff, I know the conveyance. I'm not an expert, I got a basic understanding. I know how all the conveyance, where the pumps are in Tracy, the aqueducts, the water exchangers, I understand all that. And water is pretty important, because land without water doesn't grow. But I want to make this statement. Everything we do, hospitals, farms, businesses, All those things are important, but why are they important? Because they serve people. It's the people that are important, right? Those things are important because of the people. So, when people come out, oh, water, well, what does that mean? We know water, but what does that mean? Because people can say stuff. It's about the people. And everybody needs water, not just farmers. But one of the things I said, I was interviewed, you can go to the news stations when we were organizing against Carlton's comments, and I debated them on a stage, was, the valley here, you can't be the CEO or of Disneyland and then, talk bad about Mickey Mouse. So you can't be, you can't. And so I worked with Devon. I know Devon. He did a good job. He got our license, and so it brings me to the point now why I'm running. What made me decide to run? I was thinking about running for assembly. I don't know why I like politics. I like policy. I like solving problems. I got on the hospital board to solve a problem. It's about solving problems because I care about people. And there's something about purpose. I'll tell you about socialism. What's the most evil thing about socialism? It's pretty bad when you take from somebody and give it to somebody that didn't earn it. But let me tell you what's even just as evil is where people get all their needs taken care of and they don't do anything. Because they're not living out their purpose. Life without purpose is meaningless. So why am I running? I'm running because I feel drawn to my purpose. And that's why I'm here tonight, is because of people. And, I don't want to go to Sacramento to slay dragons, I want to go to Sacramento there's a lot of problems here in this district, Tulare, Kings County, and we need solutions, right? So when on Tuesday I get a text from Devon telling me support Alexandra. And I'm like, who? What? Is he? I was confused. And are you not running? And he's, oh, you got to support her, she'll be great. I go, wait, are you not? Yeah, I'm not running. You're supposed to say, I'm not running, like months ago, give everybody a chance. So what happened was, this is the thing that happened. And please get on the central thing. Because I called some people from Tulare. I also know a few on the Kings. None of them knew about it. That's not democracy. That's not working together. That's command and control. That's dictatorship, right? Yeah. So, and they already did it once, and I'm like, I was thinking about running when I was naive. I thought everybody says who they want to run, then you kind of have forms and see. I think there should only be one candidate if it's possible, so you don't dilute the vote, but it should be kind of like the people's choice, not this, elite choice. So I told Devon, I'm running. And you know what? If you keep letting them get away with it, they just keep doing it. So, Alexandria, her dad's well known. He was the mayor of Tulare, good guy. If he was running, I wouldn't be running. I'd support him, right? Maceda. Yeah. So, well, anyway, I'll open it up for questions if you guys got any. Yes.
What are your thoughts about the homeless?
Yeah, so I'm a law and order guy. We had a big problem with the homeless. My wife, we're business people. We own several small businesses. 2 years ago, your shop got broken into by a homeless person, and later that night, they found him, arrested him, and then her boyfriend came back and gutted out my wife's store. And so my wife put her out of business, but she's pretty tough. She's had to deal with me. And she went online to sell her stuff. She was already kind of selling stuff on Facebook. I would, being friends with a lot of the city council, I don't think the local municipalities should have to deal with it. I believe the state is dropping the ball, and it's easy for the elites. They live in gated communities, they're protected. Look at all the money they can save by not putting these people, where they should be. But another component of that is, because it's a complex issue and there's different types of homeless. If you're homeless and you're not hurting nobody, and you're not the worst person, you're not the worst homeless, but what you have is, since the decriminalization, remember, I think it was Prop 47, these petty crimes, the cops, you could just do petty crime after petty crime. You got criminals going in with the calculator. They're shutting stores down because they're just ripping them off, right? It's out of control. I feel the state doesn't care. I feel let them loose. When you talk to these homeless women, this is scary. You talk to homeless women, and they'll tell you they've been raped so many times that they don't even keep track anymore, and they're all homeless men raping. What does that mean? Now, I believe we need to take care of people, but if there's a rapist out in the homeless community, they need to be in jail, not out on the street. So a homeless woman, her value, I was taught by the good nuns to see Jesus in every person, no matter what. So, are we, the Democrats talk about, and I don't want to get too partisan, but there's good Democrats too. But we'll just say politicians, and maybe I'm one, but it's symbolism over substance. If you care about women, if you really care about women, why are you allowing rapists on the street? So, I think we need to roll things back, criminalize things how it was before, and if somebody does something wrong, you arrest them. I think, some of the criminals shouldn't be loose out on the street, is what I'm saying. But, there's a lot of going into homeless shelters and things like that. It's tricky where they're placed. You don't want them in a community. But it's a big problem, and it needs to be solved. The worst thing about that is the government's job is to protect its people, and the state of California is not protecting its people.
How do you beat the state? How do you beat the state? Because that's where it's coming from. We are supposed to have so many homes, and we're supposed to have, and so how do you get there?
Yeah, that's a good question. How do you get there is a good question. And the one problem I see when Tulare was trying to deal with its homeless was nobody could agree on what to do. And so, everybody's idea got shot down by somebody else. So here's the problem. If the people in the community can't agree what to do, how do you go to Sacramento and tell them what to do? So maybe the answer is, okay, you're going to leave all these people out on the street, then start funding it. If we're going to build a homeless shelter, then start funding it. So if you could go where my wife's shop is, she's reopened, by the way. What's that? Downtown Tulare, K Street. Yeah, it's called Gather. Right around that, they were all on the railroad tracks. So Councilman Steve Harrell, they all worked. They finally made the homeless shelter where you can make them leave. So they moved them all in that, and now that they cleaned up that whole place, that's actually local. The city of Tulare actually did. You still got the homeless, but now they're not spread out all over the place. So they're forced to go. You have beds for them. I think they're going to build it. That might be the way to go, because if the state doesn't want to do it, then you have to do it, right? So.
Is that the one on South Oak Street?
Over by behind the old hospital. You know where Morris Levin is? Behind that. Yeah.
South Oak.
Yeah. So.
Question. Couple questions. How do you feel about Valadeo? Ann McCarthy, who's now the former speaker, and are you glad about that, or you think you should have stayed? How do you feel about Mike Johnson? But first, it starts with Valadeo. What do you think about?
So I knew Mike before he got Dave, before he got in his brother's Mike. I knew David before he got into politics. He'll tell you, I got him into politics. Because I told you as a delegate of Land O'Lakes, a group of us dairymen used to meet at the Starbucks over here by the Staples. We used to meet there every Wednesday. And he's a personal friend. I love him. I don't agree with his vote. I wish he didn't make it. I was a Trump supporter. I voted for him both times. I was a Trump supporter prior to the 2016 election. I didn't watch that. I liked his policies. Because in 2000, I didn't vote for Bush. I voted for Pat Buchanan. Because I believe in free trade, but not the type of, all the stuff Trump talked about with trade, that was what I believed. And I believe in free trade, but it has to be fair trade. So, I don't agree with his vote. I know everybody's mad about it. But let me tell you about somebody's character, because when somebody does something for somebody that can't pay him back or is no value to him, that says something about him. You know, used to go every other month back to board meetings at Land O'Lakes, and you spend a lot of time in airports, and you spend a lot of time with your fellow board members. There was 5 of us from California. And we were walking through one day, and there was a black lady going to Africa crying because she didn't have the money to get this bag on the plane. And I was walking, my friend stopped, and I was walking, and I seen him walk up, pull out his pocket, give the card. The lady turned around and hugged him, took his card, turned around and walked off. And that's what you call character. That's somebody that he was never going to see her again. Nobody saw him do it. So when I came back from Oregon, I had a job on a dairy and as the herdsman manager, and I had my 12-year-old daughter with me. And it was a long trip. I was exhausted, and there was a Wednesday night, so I went to Starbucks. And I'm sitting there, Joaquin and all these other dairymen, and David goes, "Where are you staying tonight?" I haven't figured that out yet. He goes, "You're staying with me." So my first night back to California was at David Valadio's house. And when you've been dehumanized, you can ask my wife how dehumanizing, when I left Tillamook, the rumors and lies that were spread about me. I mean, the other creamery, I'm going to say his name. There was a Dairy Gold Co-op up in Washington, but they were in Oregon, and I had made friends with a guy named Sherman Polander, and he was trying to get me in. And one day he said, "I think your field department at Tillamook blacklisted you here because now all of a sudden they don't want to take you." And the rumors that they were saying what was going on, people, at one point the board was inviting me and to meetings, and the next thing you know, I'm dehumanized and all these things. So to have somebody invite you to your house when I'm back in Tulare, or back in California, Dave got us up the next morning, made us breakfast, gave me coffee, and I went to go do my first day on the job. I think that tells you how I feel about him. But at the same time, I can tell you, I disagree with his vote.
Well, that's good, because we talked about the John Birch Society, right? John Birch Society has a rating. You can go on the website, anybody can do it, on how you vote according to the Constitution.
Sure.
Where do you think he's at on the percentage?
He's not. He's
50%.
Yeah, he's not there.
50%. So if you become assemblyman, you're gonna have to work with Dave, right?
No.
I have some friends that told me on plane flights they'll sit and talk together about it.
Sure.
But so being that said, if you were to get elected, how would you vote according to the Constitution? Would
I'd
you
vote
be in that Freedom Caucus area, 90% plus in that area?
Well, when I was sitting there at 16 years old, and I'm trying in this mock Congress thing, trying to get an abortion bill with no exceptions, and I'm the only one, and I did it anyway. What does that say? I was 16 when I did that. I have way more values than that now, right? I'm gonna vote the Constitution's the law of the land, so that's a
That's
must.
right.
Right.
Okay,
So-
and then back to McCarthy. So what do you think about him
I don't know
and
anything-
Mike Johnson being the new speaker?
Well, I don't have much of an opinion about that because I've been focused on a lot of stuff. I usually watch it, but here's my take on McCarthy. It's kind of what we're dealing here locally, where there's this group that, you know, are in control. And my take, did you see the video 2 or 3, 4 weeks ago of a Republican congressman? He threw a bill in the air, punched it. Did you see that video? So here's what's happening. You get these bills that thick, they're plopped on you. It's attorney language, and the staffers are the ones you gotta watch because, you know, and now you're gonna vote on it. And there's no time to read it, understand it, ask other people. No, we're voting on it. And I think that's part of what I'm talking about, you know, here is, one of the problems is, people want control. People want to be the boss. People want that. But you can't do that. You have to lead people the right way. And, you know, people are calling me and people are telling them to call me, and I need endorsements. And I've gotten some. And tonight somebody called me. I'd love to have their endorsement. I think I'm going to get it. But I said, look, I want your endorsement, but I want to earn it. Because I'm tired of people, you know, they're just going through the motions. I need endorsements to go do this. I want to develop relationships with people. So I said, I want to meet with you, chat, and then I want you to endorse me because you want to. If I come out here and get endorsements without doing it legitimate and genuine, then I'm just like them. You know, this is what I want to do. I don't want to do that. I want to be legitimate. I'm a genuine person, you know. How I act in private is the same way I act in public, right? And if you hang out with me, you'll find that out. So I think those congressmen got tired of that happening to them. And if you listen to Matt Gaetz, he kind of talks about that. And so, hey, you know what? 1776 was a revolt. People got tired of being told what they had to do, and so they revolted. I'm all for it. You know, and honestly, listening to you tonight talk about getting on the Central, isn't that the same thing? We're tired of being told this is your candidate, you have to take them. You know, you don't even get a choice. I'm here tonight to give you a choice. And maybe I'm not your choice, but maybe I am. I say, listen to me, ask me questions, go listen to the other candidate too, and I'll be fine, whatever everybody decides, you know, because I'm still going to be me, you know, so. Portuguese, I talk too much.
How would you vote on gun control?
If you want to own a 50 cal, own a 50 cal. If you know, there's been a lot of lives saved because a gun owner had a gun on him. So guns save lives. And if somebody's crazy, you know, instead of taking guns from them, and you should take the guns from them by getting them in an institution somewhere, you know, just taking the gun from them, they're still loose on the street. If there's, you know, these kids that shoot things up. So just taking the gun away from them, what does that do? They can go find another gun and still do it. If they're that much of a risk, they need to be in a hospital or something like that, right? But you shouldn't. To disarm free people it's communism, it's socialism.
I was going to say, you're going to take his gun away, why don't you take away his car? He can kill a lot more people with his car than he can with his gun.
Chain him up, he's going to jump off a bridge, right? Yeah.
You could change one thing in California right now. You got the power to do it. What would you change?
Oh, God.
Who's governor?
The power, I can do whatever I want. Ban abortion. Yeah, because I want to save babies' lives. And half this 80% of the state would hate me and want to murder me, but so what? Yes,
Have
like,
you tried to quantify, how immigration is affecting the valley now? How illegals are living in? How much of the homelessness, whatever, crime, car accidents?
I mean, obviously, when so many people are coming in over the border at once, it's gonna have an effect. If you go down, remember DeSantos sent that plane load to a Martha's Vineyard, and they just freaked out, and, what I told us here in California, we deal with, we don't do that. We seem to find a way to take care of them, but it was a good contrast to show those people what happens when that happens to them. But, what I was defending them on, because that is, so they're all crowded down there on the southern border, on the Texas side. They're living in the street, and that's fine. Oh, we don't got housing. Yes, you do. You got housing for them. So the immigration thing, I think Trump had it right. But I agree with Trump on immigration needs to be controlled. We need to keep criminals and drugs and all kinds of things out. However, the United States birth rate is low. If there's no population growth, your economy is going to tank. So I believe we need immigration, but it needs to be legal, so you can verify the people coming in, if they're good people. Because have you ever heard of a Peter Z. Hahn? Write it down. He's a geopolitical analyst. If you look at China, you look at Russia, you look at all these countries that their populations, it's kind of, God says keep a full quiver. Children are a blessing. All these places where the birth rate's low, their economies are going to crash. China's going to crash their economy. Russia's crashing their economy because their population's dropping. Abortion, people don't love kids anymore. I mean, so if America is going to be, America's set up to be an economic power. Our geography, we're separated by two oceans to defend us. We got two mountain ranges on both coasts. The Mississippi River alone gives us transportation that lowers our cost of goods. We're a powerhouse. And naturally, it's almost like God blessed us with that. But if you look at Mexico, you look at the demographics in Mexico, Mexico's economy is going to go through the roof. And the United States and Mexico are going to benefit off each other. And the reason why is because our populations. People have kids. Kids drive the economy. School, college tuition, pizza night, sports games. You spend money when you have kids. Sorry, old people, but when we retire, we hold on to money. We don't spend it. We're happy. But you need population growth. Sorry.
I was just going to see if you could tell us your feelings on climate change and
Climate change is the biggest gaslighting event ever. So here's the 97% consensus. Yeah, right. I can get in on that. Does carbon affect the climate? Yes, that's true. Does more carbon in the atmosphere tend to make it hot? Yes, that's true. But it's very little. And so all this talk about when something becomes politicized, you're not going to get the truth. I mean, let's take a look now. Biological men aren't men. So because it's been politicized. The biology or the science behind it doesn't matter. And climate change is the same thing. Write these names down. Richard Lindzen, William Hafner, Judith Curry, John Christie, Stephen Koonin. Have you heard of any of them? Go watch their videos. They're not fought off by anybody. They're telling the truth. So the other thing, let's say it is kind of true. How they think they're going to fix it isn't even going to work. I mean, the amount of carbon that's being produced, the solution to go all green, you're going to wreck the economy, and to go and make all this green economy, I mean, you'd have to open up thousands of mines. You'll destroy the environment to save the climate. I mean, I'm all for electric cars. Someday, electric cars will outperform gas cars. But that's gonna be a while, and you need to have the infrastructure to do all that. Someday it'll happen, but you can't crash the economy and people's lives. I think it's just, the temperature's warming a little, but nothing like they say it is. So.
Besides that, where it's really warming is in the colder locations to begin with.
Right. Give you how they like. Polar bears. Oh, Al Gore, polar bears. Yeah, and now you see polar bears and down lower where they're looking for food. No, because polar bears' population's expanding and they're going in places they never were before because they got to have a certain, spacing. Yeah, I'm sorry.
A little bit ago, you spoke about population, which is all well and good, about the economy, but here in San Joaquin Valley, more population means less water for everybody over a period of time. How do you feel? A lot of us feel that there's a limited amount of water that's beneath us. That someday that water could become, we'll have to go deeper and deeper, and sometimes.
Well, if we stop sending it out to the ocean, there's plenty of water. You just got to stop sending it out to the
That's
ocean.
another thing, but that's not enough water to replenish what's way down below, because they do send it out, but we're concerned about the amount of water that's there. Every city, I grew up in Tulare, it was a little town, now it's a big town. Same with Danforth, same with Marseilles,
Right.
a lot of population from all over, so we're all sucking from the same pool.
Right.
So eventually that water is gonna be limited, big time.
Are you advocating? I don't want to be. Are you advocating for population control or?
No, I'm to save water. When water gets scarce, our values.
So here's the thing in this state: scarcity is the tool, the engine that drives a lot of things. So yeah, the environmentalists, they have no problem slowing down or shutting down the refineries. I don't care how much oil you have. We don't put crude oil in our cars. It needs to be made into. So they want to restrict that, drive the price of gas up, and then they say they care about poor people. Poor people get hurt. Sir, I believe God gave us the intelligence to be innovative and solve those problems. I really do. I really think if we put our heads together, in order to be free, God gave us free will. In order to be free, you can't put restrictions on humans, how many kids they can have, and you got to be free.
I'm a Catholic as well, so I'm against abortion and.
Right.
But my point is, you have a limited amount of water, and I'm not an environmentalist by any means.
No, I know that. I guess what I'm saying is,
I'm trying to say, what are we gonna do to save the water we have now?
Well, I think what Bob was talking about, like we got houses, the whole community being built down the south side of town.
right.
Well, we're already seeing the effects of, we're starting to already have low water now. So how can we keep on building all this infrastructure when we already don't have water that's gonna support it? I think that's what it's meaning.
Something
You
along
talk about developers coming in and not having enough water as it is right now. We need
Take it from
I
home and
understand.
supply.
So what's the data on that, though?
Yeah, and then we have another problem, we have the big farmers selling all the water they like to get more money, selling water to the farming. So you got a whole lot of things going on. And there's several issues that have to be considered. And so you've got to be up on every one of them.
So from what I'm understanding about the system, on the wet years, if you store that water, you can get through from wet year to wet year. So I guess I'm more optimistic about that.
I have more of a statement to think about when you get elected. But number one, I think we have 4 water bonds. Where's that money going, and could it help some of this problem? We need to look into that. And number 2, the issues at the border. My big issue with the issue of the border is that the Biden administration stopped DNA testing, and so this human trafficking of these poor little kids is pissing the hell out of me. That needs to be addressed.
I'm not sure where you get all your news sources about what's happening in America or in California. I'm curious about that.
Well, it's not cable.
How
It's if you want to get misinformed, watch Fox News, watch CNN. You'll get misinformed.
yeah, exactly. So, but more as people coming across the border, the majority of the people coming across the border are young military age people, men. And they know exactly where they're going. You can ask, I mean, I see video after video from Ben Burkhardt.
Right.
Where are you going? Where are you going? Where are you going? Every one of them knows exactly where they're going. So someone's bringing these people in.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, they're going into their countries.
Like I said, I think Trump had it solved, and then Biden came in, and it was fixed, and
And it's
or it
not
was
like
being
that.
fixed.
Kings County just put out, the sheriff's department, I believe it was, just put out a post online about where you can call if you suspect something's going on as far as child trafficking things. Yeah, so I just got that today.
Dick Durbin stood on the Senate floor today, I got the video in my pocket, and he said, you know, we need to take all these people that are military trained, the Chinese, there, put them in our military. That's what he said today on the floor, and they're gonna make legislation, make a vote. That's how the Roman Empire fell. The Turks and the others came in, and they brought them into their army, and the chief just turned on, took them over. This is what's happening. We don't shut the border. You can, I can show you the video when we're done. It's right on TV today.
No, like I said, I think Trump had it solved, and it was fixed, and Biden broke it.
You about ready for a closing statement there?
Yeah, I will. If I could ask you, for help, so I filled out my paperwork, I paid the fee, but I need signatures to qualify for the ballot. I have the same forms to get on the Central Committee. I got mine back there. If you live in Hanford, Lemoore, in Kings County, you're registered to vote. I'm asking you, would you please help me? I got about 30 signatures from Tulare. I'd like to have 30 signatures from Kings County. So closing statement is, yeah, sure.
Can you explain a little bit more about the Central Committee that you're referring to?
Yeah, so the Central Committee is basically, your job is to look at the candidates, right? And then kind of just decide amongst yourself who you like. I don't think you get to pick who you want, but to kind of review them and discuss it, and then support them. And so if the leadership is leading the Central Committee out of that process, that needs to be fixed. But it's basically, supporting the candidates.
So who makes that? The GOP?
Well, from what I understand, it's the leadership. So Alexandria is going to be endorsed by the state Republican Party.
But they direct money for these candidates.
Right.
Too. That's the thing. They pay them out and then people.
Now, from what I understand, the Central Committee, if there's more than one Republican, the Central Committee won't do anything. But see, that's how they get you, is because all the states endorsed it. So if people like you who aren't, paying attention, who do you vote for? Oh, well, this one's endorsed by the party, the state. Well, they must have did their research, but right. So, but look, you guys go research her and you decide for yourselves. To me, I think she's too young and no experience. And if I thought she was good, I'd be getting behind her, not running against her. So I guess I'll let that be my closing statement.